I'd just like to begin by saying thank you to everybody in the room. We had an amazing event here last year. It's great to see people returning, new faces, and I think it says a lot about the Scottish business community. I referenced this last year, but I really do feel like we're in this together. Industrial revolution, whatever we want to call it. We have to help each other. It's change for everybody. I also want to point out sort of two other thank yous that are close to my heart, actually, without getting too philosophical, because it's not what today is about. But the gentleman who gave me my first ever job when I was 17 is in the audience, a chap called Scott Baird. So I can't help but think, knowing what we know now, would you hire a 17-year-old Tony with AI? That's a question that I'll put out there. The second is to our chairman who invested in me when I had a laptop and a phone, a little bit behind where Russell was in 2014. And collectively over the last decade or so, we've built a business that will soon reach 20 million in revenue across two businesses that we've created. And by the summer, we'll have almost created 100 jobs in Scotland. I'm super proud of that. So thank you to the two of you. I start with a problem because the quality of the speakers today has absolutely destroyed the questions that I'd prepared. And I did think about that. I did plan for that. So I wrote more questions and they answered them as well. So wish me luck. So over the past 18 months, AI has been described as the next electricity, the next internet, even the biggest shift in work for 100 years. But as SME leaders, you do not need philosophy. You need clarity. So hopefully through this session, over the next 40 minutes or so, we can cut through some of that and get into the good stuff. Full disclosure, as Mark pointed out earlier on, I think there'll be conflicting views and opinions, and that's okay. That's what we expect, and that's what we want. No fighting, no. So I'm going to kick off with you, Gary, if that's okay. And we may recap on some of the stuff that's been discussed today, because you have stolen my questions. So, but if SMEs avoid AI for the next 24 months, what realistically is going to happen? Can they afford to stand still?
Okay, good question. Well, I think the first thing I'd say, and I know a few of the speakers have touched on this morning, AI is much more than technology. So the first thing I'd call out is if you think you can wait 24 hours and then drop in a technology solution, you're gubbed. Sorry, but you've got major, major issues. I think if you think about a car manufacturer, it would be absolutely insane for a car manufacturer today to go back to hand welding chassis. You just wouldn't do it. Why wouldn't you do it? It's not because humans are bad at welding, but it's because all of the competitors are using robotics, and the human just simply cannot compete with robotics. So the key thing there, I would say, is the market sets a condition. Now, I do take, Russ, your point at the end there that, you know, many organisations, probably most organisations in some way, are still at the very beginning of this journey. But the key thing about that is it's a journey. It's not about dropping in a technology solution at some point. So the people who have already started on that journey are already relearning how to work their operating model, how to change their culture, their practice, their process. It's like that car manufacturer. You don't just drop in a robot one day and say, right, off you go, engineers, we don't need you. You know, there's a whole pile of changes that are way, way, way beyond data and technology that needs to happen. So if you think you can hold off for 2 years and then drop in a technology solution, you've got major issues because your competitors, and as I said earlier, even competitors you don't know exist yet because they're creating something from the ground up that's AI enabled, they're going to be in a different league. And the problem with these things is all of these changes compound, all of the values compound, all of the learnings compound. So that fork in the road between the cans and can'ts 2 years' time from now is going to be very, very stark. So yeah, I couldn't, you know, if you'd asked me a couple of years ago what the progress with AI would be, I could never have predicted that we'd be continuing to accelerate. When the internet dropped on us, you know, a few decades ago, it was there and it took us a pile of time to learn about it. AI was there a long time ago, but it's continuing to accelerate and accelerate and accelerate. So you need to get in the journey now. You need to learn much more than just how to handle technology. You need to reimagine your business and how it works and how carbon and silicon kind of work together in harmony.
Yeah, I think just picking up on that point, I often challenge a team, if we started Silver Cloud tomorrow, would it look anything like it does today? And the answer to that question is no. And my fear isn't competitors, they're rubbish. My fear is businesses that don't exist yet. And that keeps me awake at night. So I think just following on from that, a point to you, Russell, how do SMEs, leaders, management teams separate real AI opportunity from the hype and snake oil? If you look at social media, all of a sudden unlimited leads, marketing departments, so on and so forth, how can we sift through the noise to get to the real good stuff?
For me, it's about solving a business problem. That's it. The technology is irrelevant, whether it's called automation, AI, or some of the SaaS platform. What are we achieving by deploying the technology? What's the outcome? We saw Momo's use cases, the value that it brings to an invoice department. That's the fix, right? And some businesses don't really care what technology they're using. Can we just solve a business problem? So that's the vision. That's what we lead with as an organisation. The challenge that we've got is not everybody you don't know what you don't know. And that's why events like this are great, because you can come along, you can hear different organisations, different viewpoints, different people, different technologies, and hopefully you walk away with something that says, do you know what, that resonated, and I'm going to try and talk or think and deploy that. So I think this has been excellent. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself listening to this today. So how do we help hype, focus on a business problem, speak to the partners that are open to working with you. Don't invest too much money too quickly, because it might not be the right partner, the right technology. Pilot, POCs, test it out. If it works, great. Find a budget, scale it out.
Great. Mo, you want to pick up that point?
Yeah, actually, that's a very good point. So for the customers that I referenced, like Emerald Technology or Pike and Bainbridge, we started off with the business problem. So one of them was led by their finance team, and they spent many months or even years trying to find the right solution to solve their admin-heavy payroll problem. And it wasn't until we engaged that within a couple of weeks, they could see the potential. Within a month, we had a roadmap to pushing them to production. And then within a couple of months, we were handling all the invoices with limited accuracy. And then it improved from there, because the system continued to learn until it's now hitting 100% accuracy in processing all invoices. And I think the point that these businesses have is they were looking for an AI solution to solve a business problem, and hacking away at a productivity tool or a piece of automation that users that are not trained or able to do it on their own could do is a different value or a different proposition to something that a business can rely on. So they can rely on their agentic software today to process 500 invoices month in, month out, knowing that it learns the way they work that previously was not possible.
I think there's a point to continue on that, which is those who market those platforms as almost cookie cutter, which we'll come on to talk about later on. They've got the biggest budgets, right? The biggest marketing budgets. How can we see red flags through that? How can we help our audience identify that?
Yeah, I think similar to what everybody here says, it comes down to how do you engage with those companies, and trust gets built by forming relationships and forming partnerships with those companies, and being there with them on a journey to solving the problem that they've identified. So for, again, I'm going to use the examples that I've shared for Emerald Technology. I met with their CFO over a beer. We talked through their problem and their use case. Within 2 weeks, we were on a call. We scoped out what they want from a POC. And then ever since, we are on a call every week talking about the next evolution of the agent and what we're going to be doing with them. With Pike and Paybridge, it's the same. I met the CEO and founder. He had the imperative of wanting to 10x the number of individuals that are leasing cars through their company. They have quite ambitious growth targets, and it was through building a relationship with the CEO and founder. He had the imperative to work with us on a week-in, week-out basis to basically build an agentic system for his business.
Great. Jeff, I'm going to come on to you. I love your genuine, feelings towards doing right by using AI. We've heard the Microsoft AI CEO, Mustafa Suleyman, say AI could automate most white-collar jobs in the next 12 to 18 months. Now, appreciate what Mark's saying earlier on, that it's not quite as clear-cut a statement as social media portrays, but how do we take our teams on the journey without creating fear, and resistance?
Yeah, so I think the answer to this is that it's a bumpy ride, because change, a lot of people just don't like change. And I don't think there's an easy answer to it. But I also think in some ways it's not anything new. Whenever any other disruption happens in a company, we look after people, and the way we do that is in the same way, just being clear. I think one thing that's helped me a lot with this is one of the co-founders of Netflix said famously that their company culture, they said we're not a family. And this is a little bit controversial, but a lot of people describe their business as a family. And if this is not true, I mean, a family, you don't fire someone from your family because you don't like them anymore, as much as you might like to sometimes. But in a business, so he said the metaphor they prefer is we're an elite sports team. We're aiming for a particular goal. We're competing in a competitive landscape. The whole point of our existence is to do well in our field. So we have transfer windows where people come in and go out, and we make changes to the way we do our training and our nutrition and all that sort of stuff. I think that's a better metaphor. So using that sort of metaphor helps, I think, because then you're talking to your team as like, right, we're an elite team here. We want it to be the best we can be in our space. This is the way we do it. We don't really have a choice, because if we don't move with the technology, then we are choosing to decline. And in most cases, that's not the way to go. But I would caveat that with the human thing, that sometimes taking the longer, more far-sighted view is to say, well, look, where's this going? Do people want to interact with a robot all the time, a digital thing all the time? I don't think so. Humans want this sort of thing. We're all here because we wanted to do something in person. So it's not a fire everybody because it doesn't work anymore. Actually, where are the points where you could keep people, empower them with AI in order to be different when all your competitors are just getting rid of everybody?
And do you think transparency is absolutely key to this in terms of, management teams disappearing into rooms and their teams thinking that they're conspiring to build agents to get rid of them? That's a real thing, right?
Well, I think that's actually it's happening, yeah. So I think it's much better to say, look, let's go do this journey together. And also, people are using this. They're using this they've got a ChatGPT on their phone or something. They're using it every day. So people in your team, particularly younger people, stereotypically, are probably really quite far on with this. So it is another change there where you can look around a team and go, perhaps people who don't have the training, the degree qualification or whatever, they might be in a better position to take an active, important role in the company here because they're trusted, because they've got context, they're known to your customers or whatever. So actually it's worth looking at your teams and thinking, it's not so much about getting rid of people, but how could people change? How could we train them, give them permission to show us what they can do with these new powers that are available?
I'm going to put a question to the audience, which is, a show of hands if you genuinely believe the human impact of all the things that we've seen today is a positive one. So there's interesting, probably 3/4 of the room. There's something to take from that. I think there's still a bit of work to be done, isn't there? Okay. So Laura, if SMEs want to build some AI capability internally, what skills should they actually hire for?
Well, so we just saw Jeff's daughter. She is 13 years old and she was building Amazon with AI. So does that mean that we can hire 13-year-olds?
She's available.
Well, I think it depends on the type of role that you're hiring. So if it's a technical role, that might be different from somebody who is going to work on designing or implementing those AI workflows, or somebody who is just going to be using those tools. I don't know. But in general, you're going to find when you interview people that everybody's on a learning stage and at different levels of the learning stage. So it's for what works for you as an organization. For me, it's more about soft skills, and it's going to be more about soft skills because using AI and knowing about AI, it just evolves so fast that it's really difficult to catch up. So you need people who are open to learning and evolving, so you can gauge that in your interview process, and you need to be ready to have upskilling in place. So for example, at Clear Sky, we work on AI projects so we can all learn together as well. So it's more about you get people with some different levels of skills and knowledge, but when they come in, you have to be prepared so that everybody and the company grows together and learn together.
And how do you think we sort of get to the point where we understand whether someone really gets AI or they're simply using ChatGPT to fill in their application and tell a bit of a story? Is there any benchmarks or quality checks?
Yeah, you have to have internal training and some guardrails around what tools get used and how they are used, because people are just going to naturally, go to the tools that they know, but that may not work. So you might have confidential data, you might have some tools that work better or less. So you need to have some guidance for people in terms of what tools to use and how.
Great, thank you. Mo, question for you, and it's a big one that I think most people in the room will wrestle with. Who owns AI in the business? Who's responsible for it? Who's got it wrapped around their neck?
I think in general, it depends on how you define an AI within the business, but ultimately, the person that would own an AI agenda in a business is the one that has the most pain point and constrained resources to deal with that pain point. So the customers that we deal with, we tend to engage with executives, business line owners who have an imperative to do something, either a new regulation that has come in that they need to address really quickly, a new competitor that has come on the market that they need to catch up with and show their customers that they're able to keep up. It's a customer ask and a customer expectation that they need to provide better services or better technology to them. Whatever the imperative is, the person that owns the imperative and the pain point that goes with it ultimately is the one responsible for thinking outside of the box and looking at AI as a way forward.
Here's maybe more of a direct question. Who shouldn't own it?
Who shouldn't own it? I think in general, in my background, I worked for 20 years in helping businesses adopt digital technology, and what tends to happen, different functions within the business are the ones that are holding back adoption of technology. Like it could be folks that are non-technical who get excited by technology but don't really understand how to define the problem to solve with that technology. It could be the IT function who do not have the capability or the capacity to look after a new set of technologies or haven't been provided the budget to do so. But every business is run completely differently. I think in your organization, ultimately the people that will look at AI and AI adoption across the board in the business operation context are the ones that are responsible for revenue generating activities or cost imperatives that they need to manage.
Great, thank you. Jeff, I'm going to talk a little bit about process mapping. So I hate processes. I've got a great team who does that, but I hate processes. But a lot of the time you walk through the door, you're starting in ground zero almost. How can organisations get themselves in shape, get ahead of that, you know, take away tomorrow and start making sure that it's ready for someone like you or any of the panel here to walk through the door?
Yeah, process mapping is our foundational first step for working with a new business, and the reason for that is because of that thing I said earlier about data. You need to know where the data is and work out how it's going to then be accessible to any future automations. But the previous step to that is just what actually does the business do? And I have actually very rarely walked into a business where they already had a one-pager, possibly quite a large one, but where they could point to and say, that's our entire business on one page, this is the workflow end to end. Now, plenty of businesses do, but this is the first thing to get to. And it's not so much because that page is, that sort of diagram of the whole business is essential for your day-to-day operations, you're doing fine without it, but it's because the thinking process of saying, what do we actually do? What systems do we use to do it? How does information flow from the very beginning when it enters the business and is generated right through all the iterations, ups and downs, other ends? What does that look like? And the exercise of looking at that uncovers lots of opportunities. It always has done every time I've done it with a client. And the way to start it is literally just get your chosen whiteboarding tool. There are loads of them out there. A lot of them are free to use. Pick one that you can understand that feels right for you. Maybe learn a few keyboard shortcuts to speed up the process, but ultimately just get a whiteboarding tool, or indeed do it physically on a whiteboard, although, you know, with pen, although I wouldn't recommend that because making changes is really hard. So better to be in a digital format where you can move things around, and then just literally say, pick a starting point and say, what happens next, what happens next, what happens next? Then ask every owner of a process in the business, is everything you do on here? Not in the detail, not standard operating procedure level, but just high level. Is there a box that covers everything you do? When you've got that map, you're ready to say, right, this is our map to the future now. We're going to look at this and go, is any of this automatable? How many different software tools are we using to manage all of this? Like Mo was saying, all these different tools that we end up carrying as a business. And I really recommend that as a starting point. Just draw a map.
Great. Just put something to yourself, David. So Gary had quoted 800 daily users of ChatGPT, if my note-taking was correctly. So if we think shadow AI is not happening in our business, then we still believe in Santa Claus. So, David, to put a question to you, how do we manage that risk, that data risk, and protect what's important to the business?
No problem. Obviously, data, as Jeff had in his presentation, is the fundamental for all AI. Effectively, sourcing anything within there, you need to make sure your buzzword of the day guardrails are set up and that they're in place for that. For me, shadow AI is, once again, being touched on, that most people in organisations, whether you know or don't, are probably using an AI tool somewhere, whether it's ChatGPT in the mobile phone or Gemini in the mobile phone or some other tools within the internet. For me, a proper AI policy, setting up your stall really as an organisation to say, well, yes, we want to adopt AI, but there has to be some kind of guidance around how we do this, having a proper policy in place about your usage. The likes of Copilot for quite a lot of organisations, it's actually nice and secure to a degree, with your own data and things like that as well. I mean, things to watch out for, and the worry about shadow AI for me is staff or people using ChatGPT without a license, and it's free, and they're putting your IP, your company information straight into an open source bit of information. So for me, it's all about using the right products, making sure that if you are going to go for the bigger models, that you're paying for these, so you're actually going through the subscription model and you're controlling the data through that as well. A lot of people don't realise that even when you do have a paid-for subscription, you actually have to tell it not to use your data, and that's quite important to remember. So making sure that your proper policy around your organisation, everything's set up in the correct way, and making sure that the tools and services you're using are appropriately licensed.
Yeah. Okay. Mo, how do we measure the return on investment in this stuff, right? Because it's new and it's complicated and it's fast moving. So how do we really, get the true impact? Because businesses largely, and everyone in the room can probably resonate this, we're sort of been asked to do more for less all the time. Therefore, maybe not capturing these efficiencies and wins as obvious as they should be. But how can we capture it so we can get that return on investment case and continue to do it and get the backing of the business?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, so historically, many businesses would have gone through like a typical procurement process where they allocate a budget and they expect a supplier to bid for that work, and then they go through spending that amount, and it's not for a year or a year and a half or 2 years of a program of work before you start seeing any return. I think in a world where AI is capable of writing code, AI is capable of generating outcomes that you desire as a business, I think seeing value and return can be realized much quicker. So by starting small, you can have measurable outcomes on things like numbers of hours saved, how much money you've spent versus how much opportunities have been generated, or how much of your people have been freed up to meet with more customers, or whatever the metric that matters to you within that business. You can break it down into smaller chunks and say, we're going to allocate resources to see value within the next 2 weeks. Here is a set of inputs, here is a set of outcomes, and we expect that for this individual or for this team, they will realize X amount. And then once that is realized, you allocate more budget to grow that and start scaling it. And as different phases come along, you start to realize the bigger picture of how this investment transpires. A case in point is Emerald Technology. The amount of hours that they've saved in processing payroll meant that their finance team now is looking at other areas in the business where they can impact and help support in cost savings. So we're working with them on migrating what is a 20-year-old database into an AI native stack where all their data resides, turning it into data that is accessible to an AI system. And the first point is, how can we get access to that data in 2 weeks' time in a way that we can query it in an easy manner that was not possible before because of how old the database was. And that's a small step for them to measure the positive impact that they would get before moving on to the next thing.
Okay, so final question from me before we put it out to the audience. So this will be quick fire because Amy's getting me into trouble for my timekeeping. Nothing new there. Quick putting you on the spot. One action everyone in this room could take tomorrow following today. We'll start with you, Gary.
What action? I think the first thing probably...
I said quick.
Process mapping is not a bad shout, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So think what a good outcome means in the implementation of AI or anything is automation could be one thing, but this may not be the gain. So think about what exactly is the gain that you're trying to achieve with the implementation of AI.
For me, once again, I think process mapping's the big one, but it's identifying the processes to map in the first instance as well will matter more. I think if you're looking as a business, the quick wins are there in front of you, and it's actually getting these processes mapped out, getting actually that fundamental tool right in front of you so you can see it. That's what I believe.
For me, I would go back and look at every department or your day-to-day work and look for an Excel sheet. Why do you have an Excel sheet in the first place? And why the systems that you have throughout the business have not served you well and ended up with all your data being in an Excel sheet that everybody has to access. And once you've identified the Excel sheet, that's the point where you get an AI consultant involved to see how you can agentify it.
You just got rid of a whole accountancy team there, haven't you? They won't be my wife's an accountant, she won't be happy with that comment.
I did see our head of finance walk out earlier on, so he's got the hint.
Sorry, to clarify, it's an Excel sheet to track work, or an Excel sheet to track processes, or an Excel sheet that is shared amongst teams. Excel obviously has many positive use cases. It's not going to go away. Right?
That hole's dug, I'm sorry. For me, it's finding the pain in the organisation. That's key to everything. Find enough pain, because we can process map something end to end, but there's not a huge amount of pain, there's not a huge amount of value in automating or AI in it, whatever you want to call it. So find the pain, but it has to be linked to business value. What is the business trying to achieve? That has to be front and center for me.
I mean, I agree with all of that, so I'll go a little bit rogue and say, go sign up for lovable.dev. Just for fun. Like, there's a free account, everything you make on there is free, so it goes out on the internet for other people can see it. So pay the money if you want to make something a bit more kind of that's private to you. But it's Claude Code underneath, and they've just updated it to use this amazing new model, this Opus model. So you can do insane things with that tool. So go and have your mind blown, and especially if you put something that's an actual business problem in, just don't give it anything too sensitive. But see what it will make, and have your mind blown.
Great, thanks, guys. So over to the audience now. So Amy is going to hand out a couple of mics. Who's got the first question?
But just do old school hands up, please.
Don't be shy. I knew it'd be you, Audrey. Knew it'd be you.
Hi, good afternoon. When you do your work, and be it that you've automated all these processes and perhaps created something different in itself, or what Mo's was talking about in sort of creating something in itself so you don't have these other products, who owns the IP in the end? And what happens if you know, are you stuck with that arrangement and you still lose everything at the end, or basically what happens? So
that is a very good question. So, and basically that's how we've set up our entire business. So we realized that by agentifying many of the business processes, businesses are giving away what makes them a business in the first place, as in the systems, the processes, the people, and how they execute different tasks. So the way we've set up our business, and it's different to others, we've signed up to be an Amazon Web Services partner and a Google partner and reseller. And we vend an AWS account where we run the compute, and you own that. And then we deploy our system and our platform onto that account. And all the agents that run within it, you own it as a business. So if you ever want to leave us or move on from working with us, we transfer ownership of that account over to you, and that is contractually binding, and you can take it and hand it over to any other supplier or any other partner that can manage the AWS account. So that's our answer to exactly that question.
Great. Any more questions?
Thank you very much. I would like to start by appreciating Silver Cloud for putting this together. Thank you so much. My question is around IP, and it's for you, Mo. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so if, let's say you have a customer and you've designed something for them, and their competition got wind that you built something for them, can you build the same thing for a competitor?
Well, ultimately the answer is yes, because AI, you can code away anything now. If you write anything in ChatGPT or Claude Code, what you see and what gets generated is essentially the cumulative IP that exists on the internet. So if I don't build it for somebody else, then somebody else will build it for them. So that's. But in terms of the IP itself, the ownership of the actual process and how you conduct and train those agents to perform these tasks, the IP will remain confidential and owned by the business that does it. What we will gain from it is the knowledge of how things are run and done, which, like any other consultant, you can use that to benefit others from. But ultimately, it's the business that designs and helps run those agents in an environment.
Just a very quick addition to that. I'm kind of harping on becoming the lovable guy here, but because you can now make software so fast, this is to Mo's point as well. This is not here just yet, where the security concerns are too great and all the rest of it. But it's coming so fast; it's very nearly here where people can just make software. So there's a software tool out there that I'm a sort of co-founder of. Someone copycatted it very, very quickly, and I'm hearing these stories over and over again. So I think it's best not to even try fighting that fight. I mean, unless you've got a massive legal budget or something. Just accept the fact that a lot of stuff that your moat around your business was your IP, that no one could copy, could build the thing. Actually, someone can build it tomorrow. So don't make that your moat. Make the moat the other connections you've got and the fact that you've got a trusted reputation. That will count for way more than a little pop-up startup that has got an exact copy of your software but hasn't got any of your history and your connections and that kind of thing. So I think it's becoming, we need to start rethinking how we're treating IP.
Great.
Yeah, I just wanted to express how much I've enjoyed the conference today. So thanks very much, guys, for putting this on. It's been really, really helpful. It seems to me, just from what I've been reading about AI and agentic, as well as what we talked about at the conference today, that a useful way of thinking about it is that it kind of raises the floor of what's achievable rather than raising the ceiling. In terms of the agentic can, eliminate repetition, increase like process speed, rather than kind of be more of an aspirational thing, identifying the opportunities, stuff like that I think it seems like still only humans can do. So to what extent do you think that is a useful way of characterizing it?
Can I just say that controversially, software development is not easy, right? I'm going to say that. I'm not a developer. That's the first thing. We don't want to make it sound like you can start up an AI product tomorrow. You can, and there's Lovable, and there's Make, and there's I created an app on Base 44 for a customer in about 2 days. I'm not a developer. But software development is not easy, and it's everything that goes around that to create that value for the business is really important. So yeah, play around, try stuff, but you need to do it properly.
I think ultimately the way AI is going, so it's not a zero-sum game. So people first of all think that the size of the market or size of the total addressable market for any business is the same size. What will happen with AI and agentic AI as it exists and it starts to transcend many businesses, that the size of the economy will 10x. It will be of a significant impact as the internet, where before the internet we did not have many of the businesses that we see today, but after the internet it was not. It's now possible, and we can see so many businesses where the size of the economy has grown and everybody is thriving in it. So that's a meta view. On a local view, building apps is as easy as signing up to Lovable and the other platforms. Yeah, go and do it. Just prompt your way. You are domain experts in the things that you do, and you know the pain points yourself that you face day in, day out. You can build an app today that solves your pain point as an individual with a prompt. Taking that app and running it across a business with 100 folks or 50 folks and getting them all adopting it, that is a different skill set, and it requires expertise and help to support it. So that's how I...
If I'm understanding you're raising the floor and raising the ceiling piece correctly, I think you're kind of nudging at kind of helping a much more creative or innovative way to achieve new things, as opposed to just becoming slightly more efficient. If you'd asked me that question 2 or 3 months ago, I'd have said, no, it can't really help you significantly there. Asking me today, absolutely it can. And actually we've got a number of engagements going on with different customers just now, where it's really challenging their business model, it's challenging adjacent markets that they feel they can move into now, it's challenging the boundary between where do they outsource and where do they insource different things. So that whole way of rethinking the business that you're saying would have been purely human and the AI would have done the execution, I think even that's starting to flip over now as well, where actually AI is becoming incredibly creative and finding exceptional new ways of engaging that the humans until now wouldn't have been able to think of.
We've got another one up the back here.
Hi there, thanks, it's been a good event. The question I've got, unfortunately, I'm going to go back to compliance. David made a good point about shadow IT. If you take the example of Jaguar Land Rover, who had a fairly complicated ecosystem of plastic apps, I suppose you would use the term. Essentially, that had an impact on UK GDP. It took the business down for months. How do we protect against the risk of loads of people going off doing vibe coding, finding, basically coming up with really good solutions and stuff, but actually then it's not, because I think there's already been stuff come out of a couple of vibe coding platforms that basically what the output isn't secure. I think it's been mentioned. It was mentioned today by Jeff that use it for something not critical, not sensitive. How do we protect our businesses?
I think security and cybersecurity in general, and I think Silver Cloud are very good at it, is a very big topic. And when building apps, so the way we look at it, and I don't know about any others, we are going through ISO 27001. We are ISO 27001 certified. We're currently going through the SOC 2 Type 2 audit. We're going through ISO 42001. And with those, we get audited externally for our controls, our procedures, how we handle and manage data, and how we automate all of our security checks and balances throughout the value chain of building software, testing software, deploying software, and then handling data. And we have verifiable proof along each value chain. But then a new bug or a virus can come about that none of the tools that we use can test for it. And that is where you need some level of human input or human support with expertise to be able to support you through that process. And like the example you mentioned where Jaguar Land Rover got hacked, and it took down their entire factory for 2 or 3 months and had an impact on the GDP of the UK, not making assumptions but somewhere in that value chain of all the softwares that they've been using and the people that were handling and managing their software, somewhere got missed, and that's why it led to that point. And you can be as vigilant as you can be in the software that we build. So.
There's a little part for me in this that goes back to, Tony, your question a little while ago about what happens if you wait 2 years and you don't do anything now. In reality, 2 years' time from now, you're going to be desperate and you'll throw anything that you can at the wall to try and keep pace or try and fight off new competitors. One of the most important things, and I think the Jaguar Land Rover case to some extent came down to this, is big bang releases with way too much factored in. There's way much more cognitive load than any developer or architect or any group of people can really truly take in, combined with massive, really rapid shifts in the market. You need to be able to start really small. Your organisation needs to be able to evolve, both in terms of how do we evolve our technology practices, processes, in a world where the software that we release isn't necessarily going to be able to give the exact answer that a BA or a designer at some point had designed, or you need to start rethinking all of the kind of checks and balances that you've had based in your organisation probably for decades. So you don't start that by going all hands in, absolutely everything goes out the door 2 years' time from now with a massive big bang thing. You have to start now. You have to start small. You have to evolve your culture, practice, processes. Some of the things that Mo mentioned are, of course, exceptionally valuable. But they're only as valuable as they're able to keep up with the changes in the market. And actually quite a lot of those things don't evolve until something dangerous happens in the market. So, don't wait 2 years. Start now with something really small that you can cut your teeth on, learn in a safe, relatively low-risk way, and gradually progress that ambition over time. That's going to give you much more security than different governance programs and different standards that are designed for an era that ultimately didn't have silicon intelligence factored into it.
Great. I think, Harley.
Coming down.
Your last question, Harley.
Sorry.
I was just thinking, with so many people now relying on the information that AI platforms are providing and making the decisions based on that, do you see any threat or challenge on people's kind of knowledge and kind of skills gap getting less and less the more they rely on AI? And if so, how do we overcome that?
Well, there's loads to say about that. I think it depends which time frame we're looking at. Are we looking at the next few months, or are we looking at the next 10 years, 20 years, 50 years? So I think education's a massive topic in this area. There's a lot of really interesting conversations happening around that. Sir Ken Robinson and people like that, it's really, really useful, just fundamental principles about how does the education system work, and are we preparing people for this? And I think so it means that some of the key skills that matter more than anything is the skill of discernment. Because someone needs to be able to look at an AI output and discern, is this actually a good output or not? Another AI agent can look at it and do that as well, but there's going to come a point where someone has to carry the can. So a human's going to have to look at it, and they're then going to have the knowledge and the context. So learning and knowledge is still is crucial. But I think the worry is, I have a friend who's an academic in this area, and he's saying that they're seeing in universities is the challenge of people who are using AI to learn. They do learn, but it doesn't go to their long-term memory. So they actually don't know it anymore. They have a degree which they don't have any of the benefit of at the end. It's like that's the way it's trending, unless we get better at learning. So I think it's also another thing in our organisations we can do is to create a culture of learning, investing in not just can we use the fancy new tools, but are we getting good at the stuff, the domain knowledge that really matters for us? Because otherwise there is a risk there. And I think if we think about the long-term game, AI startups or AI sort of driven startups in lots of areas will pop up and then fall down again. But the companies that will last are the ones that have thought long-term and thought, how do we carry on being good? How do we train up the next generation of people when others are just relying on AI to do it all, which is it might work, but it's a risky proposition.
Great. I'm just going to hand back to Mark, who's going to close off the session. But before I do, I just want to say a massive thank you to our speakers and panelists today. So, big round of applause. Thanks very much.